Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Startup Society's Foundation podcast. Today, we are joined by Afrikanus Kofi Akosah. He is a reporter at Cointelegraph and CryptoCoin News. How are you doing today?
Oh, I am super. What about you?
I'm doing quite well. So, you are going on a trip right now through Africa, evangelizing about cryptocurrencies. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, the plan with the across Africa with Bitcoin is to travel through the African continent, evangelizing about cryptocurrencies and the blockchain and how it can save the continent from its various financial exclusion and then the trouble we have with various currencies around. At the first stage of this tour is to go through 6 Southern Africa countries: Angola, Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Namibia, and South Africa. When this is over, which will be in July, then I'm going to strategize and start from South Africa, from Cape to Cairo.
Excellent. And what has been your reception?
It is very interesting. I'm currently in Zimbabwe, where the tour has actually taken off. And I've been here for 1 week, 3 days. And in Zimbabwe, the situation is very horrible in terms of getting access to funds from the banks. There are queues everywhere, and you can spend 4 to 5 hours trying to get money, sometimes as little as $30 or $50 allocated to each person.
I know Zimbabwe has a history of bad currency manipulation. Didn't they have horrible inflation in the past?
Yeah, exactly. Now they are they are kind of short of money. The government actually decreed that everyone will have access to only $100 a day.
Wow.
But the banks are not being able to even handle that. And sometimes they have to do with $30 or $50 a day. So right now they are using the US dollars alongside their newly created bond, which is actually pegged to the US dollar.
Interesting. Are they starting to recover a little bit based on that policy?
It doesn't seem so. It looks like they are actually declining, because earlier on people used to have access to $100 a day. But the banks can't handle that. There are long queues at the banks and at ATMs. People even have to sleep in queues sometimes. And I remember last week I went to pick up a Western Union money transfer sent to me from Colorado. And I ended up spending almost 5 hours in the queue. And I took the opportunity to introduce people around to Bitcoin. And they were very, very interested. I actually shared some Bitcoin with somewhere about 5 people. I was able to download a wallet on their smartphone for. In fact, Zimbabwe is very ripe for cryptocurrencies.
So a lot of people in America, when they hear about cryptocurrency use in Africa, they normally tell me and others that Africa simply doesn't have the technological capability to handle that. They say that they don't have enough smartphones or data or Wi-Fi. Do you believe that's the case?
It's otherwise. Actually, almost every person I've met on this journey owns a smartphone. It is becoming something. It has become vogue over here. Everyone owns a smartphone, and internet accessibility is improving day in and day out. You see, we didn't have much of landlines here. In my native Ghana, for instance, before telecommunication liberalization took place, there were only 70,000 landlines. Mm-hmm. So with the advent of mobile telephony, people actually receive it very well, and everybody owns a phone. Even sometimes people own more than one cell phone. And so it's something that we can easily use over here. We have internet accessibility. In Zimbabwe here, for instance, there are 4 telecommunication companies actually supplying.
Seems like a lot of people in the West, they underestimate Africa. I know that they've already been using digital currencies for quite a long time, like M-Pesa. Yeah. So why would someone in Africa rather use a cryptocurrency instead of like M-Pesa, which is established by a government and it's often used for taxes?
Point is, M-Pesa is not that convenient compared to using Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. There's a lower cost involved over here, and the speed of transaction also counts. Aside that, you see, when you use such system, your money is in the hands of corporate organizations and the government. Mm-hmm. But come over to the cryptocurrency space, we are talking about having your own money in your own hands. and you yourself can control it. And the peer-to-peer agenda is also a factor influencing this. The challenge over here is basically about education, letting people get to know about cryptocurrencies and then they deciding to take action. Everybody I've met here is so interested in this. For instance, the Airbnb I'm staying in, my host has never heard of Bitcoin, but when I mentioned it to him and explained a whole lot of things to him, he's so interested and enthused about the whole process. A very well-knowledge man, and I can say very rich, who is owning companies. And he has even introduced me to one of his board members who is starting a new financial company, and the man is interested in using the blockchain in providing services.
That's wonderful. Creating alternatives that are peer-to-peer. It's great. Do you see examples of that beyond cryptocurrencies and more like, let's say, smart contracts or land registration?
I think that is already taking place in West Africa. In my native Ghana, Bitland and Ben has already taken the lead over there. And I also got to know about some people who are trying to use smart contracts to provide loans and other financial services to farmers in Zimbabwe. I actually visited some farmers in 150 kilometers outside of Harare last Friday. These people are being assisted by a company called Bitmari. And what they are doing is they are giving Bitcoin tokens to hardworking farmers who takes it to a supplier and get inputs like seeds, DO checks, and other stuff for agriculture. So what they want to do is actually use smart contracts to get people from the West and everywhere to, advance money and invest in their activities.
Wow, that's incredible. I've also heard that Bitcoin microfinance is sort of working along those lines, is even helping African women. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is what I'm talking about. African women farmers, they're actually giving them loans to help in their activities, because it's not easy accessing funds here, even especially from not even the formal sector. And in Africa, we have almost 80% of the economy in the informal sector. Barriers to startups are very, burdensome over here. So registering a business takes a long time, the taxes and so on and so forth. These kind of issues has pushed so many businesses into informality. So many people, about 80% of adult population, do not have bank accounts. So how do you expect such people to get finance from the bank? So they rely on the informal sector where interest rates are very high, middlemen and loan sharks.
Oh, wow. It's very interesting to see these economies where the informal sector, the gray market, is astronomically more developed than the formal market.
Yeah, that is actually the rare free market,
So talking specifically about Startup Society, since this is the Startup Society's podcast, you said that you were involved in something called the Northern Regional Economic Enclave in Ghana. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I used to run the Africa Youth Peace Corps. It was a non-profit libertarian organization that was spreading liberty and free markets in Ghana and the rest of Africa. And the northern Ghana is actually the most poorest part of Ghana. So what you were trying to do with that project was to actually see if you could lobby government to leave that, kind of give the people like 20 years tax-free. Create a scheme where businesses that are moving up north will get a tax-free, will not be taxed for the next 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And then the people can build their own systems from interacting with each other and whoever wants to come there to do business.
Would there be any state involvement at all, or would it just be a tax-free zone?
No state involvement. What we wanted to do is for the states to be cooperative. We wanted to a kind of a lower tax system of, say, about 1% for maintenance and for building of social amenities and public services, and so on and so forth. We were envisaging having private roads being built by private companies and then tolls being paid for the use of such roads and such public amenities.
Well, this would be a perfect place. This would be a perfect
the
place for
Center
this
for
informal contracts. Yeah.
exactly. These people have got a lot of land, but that is where you have the largest land mass in the whole country in Ghana. But the problem is they have no titles. So together with Bit Nation, we initiated a project to start a Northern Land Title project as part of the Northern Economic Enclave. This project is not yet dead. Another organization has taken over and is actually working hard to resort to the Center for Liberty and Entrepreneurship. And I think in July, they will have a conference to try and bring all stakeholders, because the idea was to actually work hand in hand with the chiefs, the traditional authorities up north to do this. They own the land. Actually, in Ghana, the land belongs to the people and the chiefs. The chiefs hold the land in custody. The chiefs are the custodian of the land, but it belongs to the families. So the chiefs are basically taking care of it for the families. So we wanted to work hand in hand with the chiefs. And I once even spoke at the Regional House of Chiefs about the Line Title project. It is something that was gathering momentum, but I see financial freedom as something important for Africa now. So for more than 10 years, I dedicated my life to spreading liberty. And I decided that out of my work, there have been some organizations that came out of what I was doing, and they are also spreading liberty now. So I decided, now let me leave this for these young organizations that fell out of my activities to continue from there, so that I can pursue the blockchain Bitcoin agenda and see how Africans can actually realize financial freedom. So Center for Liberty and Entrepreneurship are the organization that are taking over the Northern Economic Enclave project.
Wow, that's so cool. You're not just arguing about the ideas, you're actually putting them into practice. I do have a question about the blockchain registry. How do you get other people to respect those land titles? In Startup Society, we talk a lot about sovereignty of having this little area. How do you protect that sovereignty from governments or from private criminals?
It is actually something. It was going hand in it will be going hand in hand with identity system. So with an identification system based on the blockchain and the line title alongside, it will be very difficult for anybody to dispute that. Actually, before I left home, I was also lobbying the newly government that was sworn in January to use the blockchain for their line title project they actually campaign on. The current free market government in power campaign on a platform of line title system for the country, so that people will be able to have access to titles and use it to raise capital in the financial sector. So I think in the long run, we are hoping that the government will also get involved in having line titles on the blockchain as well. But even without the state, we think issuing private titles on the blockchain is going to create a lot of transparency and trust system where people can, have sort of collateral to seek funding and to also protect their properties, because they are not poor. Basically, they are not poor. They own properties, but recognition for that property is the problem at the moment.
Absolutely. There's so much what they call dead capital that isn't being realized.
Capital, Fernando de Soto. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's definitely a great point. I know that one of the biggest problems with land titles is that in Africa and other developing world countries, you have governments that come and go, and all the land titles were in the government buildings, and all the records were centralized and often been destroyed or lost. When you have a blockchain, that it's kind of constant, or what in the blockchain community call immutable. So you sort of avoid that kind of conflict. Yeah.
Exactly. So everyone can verify, because one of the problems in Ghana and elsewhere in Africa is that one piece of land can be sold to about 3 people or more. But if there are these verification systems that are immutable, investors and individuals can easily verify for themselves that this piece of land I want to invest in are basically secured, and it really belongs to whoever wants to sell it or lease it to me.
So I've been hearing reports, and maybe they're exaggerated, but there's been this effort to centralize Europe, essentially to create a European Union, but for Africa. Do you see that actually occurring, or do you see what Startup Society or what you're trying to do happening with more decentralization?
African Union is just a talk shop because most of their agendas have not been able to carry through. The point is, gradually, African governments will become obsolete when Africans discover more alternatives. Because the African Union has been there for more than 10 years. I've not seen anything they've been carried through. Their single passport did not work. A whole lot of things they propose are not working because these African leaders are not really there to help anyone. They are really there to enrich themselves. It is going to disintegrate. And I'm not sure. They've not even proposed having a single currency or having something like what the European Union is having at the moment. It's just an annual meetings here and there. As I said, it's just a talk shop to spend.
It's theater.
Taxpayers money.
Ugh. Well, I'm glad there's people like you on the ground that are taking care of this. So what is your grand vision of Africa 20 years from now?
I think young people in Africa are going to change Africa. Interacting with African youth on this route, I have realized that they have a very grand vision. Most of them are not interested anymore in leaving the continent. They strongly believe there are a lot of doors that has not been opened. With decentralized systems like blockchain and Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, I see a bright future for Africa in the next 20 years because gradually the younger generation in Africa are realizing that their governments have failed them and they need to turn to alternatives.
How can our viewers help Africa by building startups or getting involved in making blockchain applications for Africa? Or is it something that simply Africans have to do by themselves?
Africans can do it by themselves, but they need people all over the world. That is the essence of globalization. Mm-hmm. There's one particular company in Zimbabwe here run by some young, smart people called the Bitfinance, for instance. They are actually Zimbabwe's only Bitcoin exchange and blockchain infrastructure company. Mm-hmm. If you want to buy something elsewhere in the world, you just have to go and see them, transfer the money into their account, and they will settle with a Bitcoin for you. If you have Bitcoins and you want to exchange it for Zimbabwe dollars or any other currency, this is the place to go. But the sad reality here is that these people are overwhelmed with, demand. They used to run adverse, but now they have to recall it because demand has exceeded supply. All these companies need investment from the Western world, especially from the crypto community. With smart contracts, I strongly believe we can assist these kind of organizations and startups to improve lives in Africa and make money alongside doing that. I strongly recommend organizations like that for Bitfinance. I strongly recommend Bitfinance for the crypto community, especially to support. And Alan Kanani Madapike is also doing a wonderful job educating Botswanas and the rest of Africans about cryptocurrencies and how it actually brings a lot of financial freedom. You see, there are non-profits and profit-making entities down here that can make a lot of good use of Western investment.
Is there a lot of tech accelerators or even specifically cryptocurrency accelerators in Africa? Because one, they provide a space and capital goods and support and money, but at the same time, they're also a locus to bring all these people together.
Yeah, in Kenya, for instance, the BitHub is another laudable idea that they are running. They're trying to create a conducive environment for blockchain startups to take off. There are a lot of them around in South Africa, for instance. There are companies that are using blockchain and Bitcoin to curb piracy and so on and so forth.
Well, this is incredibly exciting. I think it is likely or possible at the very least that we can see our first trillionaires coming from Africa. So
of course. The like of Vinny Lingham are all Africans. He owns companies like the Civic Keys that are creating identities on the blockchain. And even Spangler from Monero, they are all Africans and doing very well in the cryptocurrency space. So, I mean, these billionaires are already coming, and in the near future, a decade or two, you see many of them springing out of here. Today, I spoke to two blockchain developers in Kenya here, and it was very exciting, the kind of things they were telling me and how they see the future.
Well, that's wonderful. This has helped me a lot. Appreciate what's going on the ground. Are there any final thoughts you want to express before we end our time here?
I will actually appeal to the global community to support the blockchain and Bitcoin space here, and also, if possible, support the across Africa with Bitcoin project, because I intend to go to every country in this continent and to open the doors for cryptocurrency to actually take rules. You can send some satoshis to support my effort if that is possible.
Wow. Well, everyone, I recommend keep looking for this young man in the future. He's going to do wonderful things. Thank you for joining us. Oh, go ahead.
You can also read my daily write-ups about my journey on cryptocurrency, cryptocurrency news every day. Every day I post an article about the interactions and what I'm doing. Tomorrow, like this, I'm going to Bulawayo to hold a cryptocurrency meetup there.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us at the Sharp Society's Foundation podcast. Have a good day.
You too. The pleasure is always mine.